this talk today is the beginning of a series of 4 lessons called Love Loves Love, Fulfilling Relationships, and the Soul Life. And these lessons are about how to live in divine love, exploring how to be more skillful in our relationships by learning to see and know and acknowledge the divine reality of ourselves and one another, how to light up our mind with divine remembrance, how to figure out how to forgive, and let love lead the way. This first lesson today is the essential insight for experiencing healthy, happy relationships. And I came across this poem by the Islamic mystic poet Saadi from the 13th century. Love has a beginning but no end. And I found that very mysterious and compelling, to think about. How can that be, that love can have a beginning but no end? Okay, end of message. You just think about that. So divine love is eternal, which would mean it has no beginning and no end. Unconditional, unchanging, no beginning, no end. Yet for us, there is a beginning, isn't there? There is a beginning when we discover that eternal reality called love, in which we live and move and have our being. There is a beginning on our spiritual journey when we wake up to that. And then there is no end. There is no end. Once we see the way that things are, once we see that God is life, God is love, we don't lose that. The oneness, the wholeness, that which is. So it becomes eternal for us, but it hasn't changed. No beginning, no end. Paramahansa Yogananda concluded his masterwork, The Autobiography of a Yogi. I always like to look at the beginning of a book, like how do they start it out, because I'm a writer. How do they start it out? How do they end it? And then I go back and read through. So in the beginning, he talks about, in a sense, his dharma of writing about the masters in his tradition, in our tradition. And in the end of the book, the last part of the book, he declares, God is love. God's plan for creation can be rooted only in love. This is a million-seller book. This is the conclusion of that long story, Saints and Sages, his own journey through time and space. God is love, is what he says in the end. My guru, his disciple, Roy Jean Davis, in the spirit of yoga, always advised us to question that phrase, not to question Paramahansa Yogananda. He knew that Yogananda knew what he was talking about, but he encouraged us not to just stop at God is love, because too often that's just associated with a good feeling. So he wanted us to know, what does that mean? How can we understand this saying? And many have said it. God is love. So in this little book, Living the Eternal Way, those of you who have it, go to page 74. Not now, but later. Love, the attracting current in world manifestation. This is the Samkhya science behind the divine revelation that God is love. We get to bring this together, the cosmic process and the revelation of divine love. In the process of world manifestation, there is one current or energy that flows out from the transcendental realm into creation. Before I go there, I should give you the little side note on the side, which is the what we called in college the Cliff Notes, the short version. It says, God as love refers to that, capital T, which creates the worlds out of itself and calls them back to its own being. God as love refers to that, capital T, which creates the worlds out of itself and calls them, meaning all the realms, everything in it, that's you, me, everything, everybody, back to its own being. Okay, now a little bit of philosophy for us. In the process of world manifestation, there is one current or energy that flows out from the transcendental realm into creation, and one which pulls all creation back to itself. This is sometimes called the breath of God, this movement of divine consciousness in expression and back to itself. The current that moves into the world is called the creative or manifesting current. The current that brings creation back to its source to return to the field of pure consciousness is known as the attracting current, also called love. When God is referred to as love, it is the primary essence of existence that is referred to. God as love means that which creates the worlds out of itself and redeems them, calls them back to its own being, into consciousness of its own being. This love is not love as an emotion, but love as existence itself. We understand that love as emotion is subject to change. God as love is unchanging, ever constant. When we define God as love, we're referring to love in the highest sense as ever conscious, ever compassionate, and unconditional. Truly, as God is love, the very essence of life, we are never without this divine support. And then practically, we have the ability to cultivate divine love in our thoughts, words, and actions. This cultivation of divine love can be a path home, meaning back to awareness of our true self. So, one power, both within, beyond, and through all the world, that is love. Love loves love. The manifesting current is love in expression. The attracting current draws all souls to awaken to love through love itself. Love is the process. Love is the experience. Love is the knowing of the wholeness that it is. So the rest of Saadi's poem. He wrote, "In love, there are no days or nights." So here, of course, he's referring to living in the unchanging reality. He's a mystic. He's living beyond change and phenomena, living in the heart of love, living in the heart of God. In love, there are no days or nights. For lovers, it is all the same. The musicians have gone, yet the Sufis listen. The musicians have gone, yet the mystics listen. Because their ear, their eye, their heart is tuned to that which is beyond change and phenomena. The musicians have gone, yet the Sufis listen. In love, there is a beginning, but no end. Each has a name for the beloved, but for me, my beloved is nameless. Meaning, we can't contain that which is infinite in a name or a form. And only that which is infinite and unconditional could appear in many names and forms. So much to think about today. All right. But for me, my beloved is nameless. And then he says, which is typical of this type of poem, Saadi, talking to himself, like we do ourselves. He says, if you destroy an idol, then destroy the idol of the self. Meaning, the ego, the ignorance that keeps you from seeing this ultimate truth that we are all one in this divine life that is love, that is God. So that says it, right? To abide in endless love, unconditional, unchanging love, we are to let go of the belief, the fantasy, the idolatry that we or anybody else is somehow separate from the source, somehow separate from love itself. And this insight, of course, is easy enough to see, to consider, to take in at satsang, in a temple, in a church, at worship service, or even in being nature, being in nature by ourselves or sharing the beauty with someone else. So we feel it. Love is all. And then we go to work. Or we go home in our family environment. And how does it become real to us? How does it become something we live, something that is realized, experienced, actualized? This God is love stuff. I'm convinced that that's why God invented relationships. Relationships, if you haven't noticed yet, I will tell you, are our divinely inspired training programs for spiritual awakening. And what I've noticed over the years is that they work so much better if we know that. And if we expect to grow. If we expect that relationships are going to help us have our rough edges sanded down in what we can call love's learning lab. That's what's going on. Paramahansa Yogananda summed up this strategy for spiritually inspired, happy, healthy, fulfilling relationships with family, with coworkers, with community, with all beings. He summed it up by saying, "Behold the one in all." And when I remember the truth of who I am as a divine being, and I remember that truth of others, no matter who they are, then I have the capacity to see things more clearly. I have some breath in me. Some breadth and some breath. I can step back from taking offense so easily, from taking things personally or getting in a power struggle. That always gets me in trouble. Never gets me what I want. Even if I win, I don't get what I want. So when I can see divine love at work, teaching me, sanding off those rough edges that are ego's strategy for getting what I think I want, mistakenly making someone else responsible for my happiness, the divine love in another rouses the divine love in me to wake up. Right in that gritty moment. If I'm committed to that. If I'm not, we both can fall in the ditch together. So when there's a relationship challenge, I ask myself, what do you want? And there's a surface, what do I want? Well, I want to be right. I want my husband to understand my point of view. But that's really not what I want. That's not the deep what I want, not what I really want. So when I ask myself, what do I want to ask myself, what do I really want here? And that practice that I have is a practice simply to remind myself that it's love that I really want. That's the outcome that I'm looking for. That's the shift that I'm looking for, because that's the one that pays. That's where the gold is. I want love. I want divine love. I want unity. I want peace. I want compassion to prevail. I want to see clearly. I want to speak lovingly, truthfully, and act with love, not with the idol of self-righteousness or the bane of neediness. I remind myself that love is my goal. It is my commitment. It is my prayer. It is my practice. And when I forget that, it can be painful. But the pain also can help us remember. That's what it's there for. Paramahansa Yogananda wrote on how to meet disharmony with love. He wrote, "Each condition of inharmony and criticism which I meet is a direct call to me to release the power of understanding, friendliness, and love. Each encounter with hate and anger calls for compassion and love from me. Each situation involving ugliness or emptiness calls for the release of the power of beauty in the form of creative activity." You know, our divine resources, we have them. Then he says, "I have much work to do, and I will be about my Father's business." Of course, referring to the Lord. So here's the deal. The only way for us to have love is to bring it, to be it. We can't get it. Well, we can't get it because we already have it. We already are it. We can't get it from somebody else. We can't demand it. We certainly can't control it. We can only be it and offer it. So how do we do that? And what does it look like in the heat of the moment? It looks like a commitment to truth. It's a commitment we make every day to live in the truth of our being, staying awake to the truth of our being as spiritual beings, as love in expression. I like to say that we are the growing edge of love in our world. It's where love finds expression. It's where God finds expression through us. So it's a commitment that we make, the truth, to be in the truth, that it's all God. It's all God. It's all God in expression. Remember the philosophy lesson at the beginning of today's message. It's all God in expression. Moving out into expression, moving back into itself. Don't let any situation take love from you. That's the other part of it. Ask yourself, what do I want here? What is my commitment? There's an exquisite story about the commitment to love that comes at the conclusion of the great epic, the Mahabharata. The war is over, and the Pandavas know it's time for them to renounce their kingdom, leave this realm, and make their journey to the heavens. Yudhishthira leads the way, followed by his brothers, Bhima, Arjuna, Nakula, Sahadev, their wife Draupadi, and also a dog who follows along, faithfully accompanying them. Along the way, first Draupadi and then one brother after another fall by the wayside due to various shortcomings that impede their ascent into the heavenly realms. Soon, only Yudhishthira and the dog remain and continue the journey towards heaven together. When they reach the pearly gates, oops, wrong story. Well, as they get closer, then Indra, the king of heaven, the abode of the gods, appears with his chariot, commends Yudhishthira for his righteousness, and tells him to get in the chariot and ascend to heaven. Yudhishthira motions for the dog to get in, and Indra says, no, that is not possible. Dogs are not allowed in heaven. And Yudhishthira says, well, then I won't come either. How could I leave this being who has been so faithful and giving only love to me? Why would I cause this being grief? No, I will not come, he says, and he turns to go back, and the dog follows behind him. Then Indra calls to him and says, turn around, look. And miraculously, the true identity of the dog is revealed as the god Dharma, the god of righteousness, of divine truth and cosmic order, which is the very foundation of love. Thus, through his commitment to beholding and honoring the one in all, Yudhishthira ascends to the heavenly realms, accompanied by the god Dharma. Now, those of you who read the emails and who know we recently adopted a dog into our family might be suspicious of me telling this story. Well, I don't blame you. But yesterday afternoon, as I was contemplating this message and sharing this story with you, I took our new dog, Nimisha, out for her afternoon walk. It was raining, and we were both in our raincoats, looking very Patagonia, I must say. Then we stopped at the curb of a four-way intersection to let the ongoing traffic pass by. Standing on the curb, one car passed us, and then a red truck coming next stopped, and there's like 3 cars behind it, and I can see the driver motioning for us to cross the street. So as we moved in front of him with Nimishamba leading the way on her leash, he rolled down his window in the rain, stuck his head out, and said, God always goes first. Isn't that right? And we reached the other side, and he drove off. Now, I will admit it's possible he might have said, dogs always go first. It's the law, right? But either way, it fit. Remember, love loves love. Om.